Hey gamers, Games of James, James here. I'm James, you're you. Now that introductions are over, let's get to the games. This week we have probably one of the most creative games I have come across in a very, very long time. It is called Print Weaver by NL Morrison and is available at Exalted Funeral. Just to be upfront, I am not connected to the author or any websites. This is a totally independent review. I bought this game with my own money, and we're going to see what $20 gets you. So $20 gets you a print version of the game, it gets you the PDF, and it gets you two different types of character sheets. Your traditional printout and have your players write on it, and a fillable e-sheet that has become all the rage in our new golden age of internet technology. So, what makes this game unique? So when you are playing the game, have you ever sat there with your players and they said, oh my gosh, I'm so bored and I am so tired of having my character fumble because of poor dice rolls, or my character wasn't a great character because of their stats were left up to the fate of dice rolls? Well, this is the game that everything is based off of your fingerprints. That is correct. Your stats are generated based off of your fingerprints. A lot of your gear are based off of your fingerprints. Monsters are based off of fingerprints. Everything here is either based off of fingerprints or can be. Because sometimes they do give you an option, well, if you're not going to use your fingerprints, here's tables for you. So if we're looking at the game, it is definitely this very OSR, old school feel. The rules are very simple and straightforward. They talk about it being a Souls-like campaign setting. To me, this seems more like a game called Salt and Sanctuary, where you're going around killing monsters, you get their salt, you use salt to improve yourself. In this one, you are someone called a traveler, because this game is classless, but you go around killing monsters, you collect their blood, which is ink, and then you use ink to do everything from healing yourself, putting enchantments on your weapons, or starting new settlements, or protecting your campground at night. So it's very similar to that. Another unique mechanic of this game is that your characters cannot die. So they can be killed, but they can't die. Your characters will always come back. What's the problem? Well, you die, your body, your old body at least, becomes this horrible zombie going around the countryside looking for blood, and you reform at the last shrine that you have rested at. So we are going to, let's go take a look at this game. It clocks in at 88 pages, or the PDF at least, clocks in at 88 pages, and that is from cover to cover. The rules are actually pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, at least with the PDF that I got, the table of contents is not interactable, so I can't click on it and it'll take me right to that section. Boo hiss, but hey, whatever. Got a little flavor text here. They talk about the preface. They don't really go into the campaign setting in and of itself. Really, they only talk about a few core of the game, so like shrines, safe havens, and stuff like that. Other than that, everything else is really left up to the player, which is a good thing. It allows a player to run free with this game. Personally, I quite like the vague setting, because I would use this as maybe a sub game, where if you went into like if you were playing D&D and you were playing, your characters went into a wizard's tower and knocked over a ink vial trap and get trapped in this ink realm. That'd be pretty cool, and that would use this game, and you would have to find your way to get out. But everything is determined by your fingerprints. So first off of your stats. So you have strength, willpower, and dexterity. Pretty straightforward as to what those are. You have hit points that are derived from your strength and half your dex. And it is so yeah, you roll a d10, add your strength and half your dexterity to that result. But here is the thing, like, your main hit points are actually your strength points, because every stat has a pool of points which can be used for a lot of different things. So adding dice to a roll or whatnot, or willpower is used to pay for spells. But if you take damage, it will deal damage to your strength points. If you lose your strength points, it goes to your vitality. You go to 0 vitality, then you go unconscious and can die. Then you have to resurrect at a shrine, and that leads to a whole other thing. But it's pretty great. System, very hard to die. I think this can lead to more heroic risk-taking. Also, because there's no classes in this, everything is based off of your fingerprints and the equipment that you have. If you were, hey, I'm in New York, but I am going to go visit my friends in Alaska who play this game as well, I could just bring my character over because it should flow seamlessly into their campaign. So now, like I said, everything is determined by your fingerprints. Now, what if you have friends or players that don't have all of their fingers, or something has happened to their fingerprint, or maybe they have an extra finger? They're like that dude from Princess Bride. Well, they have rules that cover that as well. So if you have an extra finger, your extra fingerprint adds to your stats. It doesn't add to your equipment, but you get a boost in stats. If you're missing fingers, they do actually have stuff that will give you extra equipment. So, for example, down here, these are folks that are missing their fingers. We're kind of jumping the gun, so let's back up for a second. So we're going to go and look at our fingers, and then we will determine what we have. So they give you an example here. If you look online, there are only 3 main types of fingerprints: loops, arcs, and whorls. So you look at your fingers. Kind of reminds me of that Futurama where it's like you ever look at your hands and you really look at your hands. So you look at what you are looking for. You're looking for what you need to determine your character. So, for example, your strength is determined about, let's see here, your strength is determined by how many loops, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, strength is determined by loops. So I have a whole bunch of loop fingerprints. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 loop fingerprints. I'm gonna have a beast of strength. So it's like, you gotta turn around and prepare for that. I'm just gonna have a very low willpower. I only have 1 arch fingerprint, so I'm gonna have a 1 will, and then I have 2 whorls, which is your dexterity, and those are your that's your dexterity. So hey, you know what? There you go. So I have 7, 1, and 2. So I am just a beast in strength. But now it's time to determine your equipment. So, it is time to take a look at what equipment you start off with. So what you do is you look at your fingerprint pairs. So you look at both of your thumbs, and it goes from left to right. So, I have 2 whorls for my thumbs. So a WW. So I look on the chart, and that is the thief. So I will start off with a leather tunic, and that is medium armor. So that's pretty cool. My pointer fingers. I have my pointer fingers. What do I have? I have 2 arches for my pointer fingers. No, I'm sorry. I have an arch and I have a loop. So I have an AL for my pointer finger. So that is the druid. So I get a wooden staff, which is a heavy weapon. Alright. So far I got leather armor. I got a staff. Then my middle finger. That which I say F you to the world. I have 2 loops. So what does 2 loops get me for my middle finger? Loop. I get a metal shield. All right, that's kind of I don't know. It's kind of bad because like if you go and look into the rules, like I think every weapon requires 2 hands. So I don't know if I can use a shield and a hand, a shield and a 2-handed weapon. Let's see here. Heavy weapon. Heavy weapons are 2-handed. Yeah, there you go. That kind of sucks. But hey, what am I going to do, right? I can always make adjustments, right? It's my game, do what I want. You can too. Metal shield, +1 OB when in hand, if stored in your pack. Yeah, okay, so I can store it in my pack and protect my pack. So I walk around with my staff and I got my shield. So OB is obstacle number because that's the one of the frustrating things. They can't use like challenge rating or something like that. They had to come up with their own terminology. But anyway, you know now what you have, right? That's how you get your equipment. Like I said, there's no classes, there's no leveling up. It's all based off of your equipment. So it is, pretty straightforward, but it's done by your fingerprints, and I find that incredibly creative. Especially because, there's a lot of games that are out there that are trying to differentiate themselves from other games, and they'll turn around and say, like, well, we use playing cards to determine everything. Oh, yeah, we use tarot cards. Oh, yeah, we use this. Fingerprints, that is that last great frontier. I love that. That's an incredibly great idea. And the weapons, it's like you classify weapons in terms of their type, or whether they're light, medium, or heavy. Ink weapons are weapons that you need to hurt monsters. If you use a regular mundane weapon, it does less damage to them. All of the weapons that you start off with are considered quote-unquote inked. So yeah. Big thing that you get in this game too is rings. Rings are incredibly important. They're powerful magic items. They are the only pieces of equipment that return to you when you die. So if you die, your spirit manifests itself somewhere else. The rest of your gear stays where you died, and your rings come with you, though. Which I think is pretty cool because the rings actually do a lot of cool things for you. And I think that's a pretty neat mechanic that, like, your rings will come with you. Rest and revival, like I said, your items disappear from you, but the rings that you're wearing will come with you. If you had your pinky rings, comes with you. Once a pimp, always a pimp. But it's pretty awesome too because it reminds me of like old school NetHack. Like when you die and you find like the body of your last character, you can pick up the items, but sometimes creatures will pick it up. So in this game, if your body is left there, creatures will pick up your items. So the core mechanic of this game is attribute checks. So you roll a d10 based off of your stat or any other modifiers. Anything 6 or higher is considered a success, and you have to get X amount of successes in order to succeed. So, for example, if it has a difficulty of 6, you need to get 6 successes. If you have advantage, instead of rolling an additional die, the target number is lower, so you need to get a 5 or higher. If you're at disadvantage, it's 7 or higher. You can also spend your stat points to pump up. So if I have my beefy 7 strength, right, I can add 7 dice to a roll if I wanted to. Or you can dish those out however you want. Combat, pretty straightforward. It's nothing revolutionary here. You've seen this in other OSR games. Movement, they have this tied to, free form, not necessarily tactical. If you are using a grid, they do give you the rules of how many squares you can move if that's what you're doing. They give you critical hits, different types of conditions and damage that can be inflicted. It's not very tactical or nuanced combat, but it works for this type of game. It works for, and again, with any of these OSR games, it's not revolutionary. It's nothing that you haven't seen before, but it works. One thing that is extremely unique about this game, and I mentioned this earlier, is that you need ink to set up a camp. So if you set up a camp and you use 10 drops of ink, you ward an area for one night so your party can rest. And like other OSR games, resting for the night gives you certain benefits. It recharges stuff. So I thought that was a great flavor to the game, that you can do that. If you don't do it, you run the risk of monsters trying to find you. But again, a lot of this stuff is determined based off of your thumbprints. So if you find a random settlement, you can, as the game master, you can use your own thumbprints to generate a random settlement or a random safe haven. Or you can roll. They give you the option to do either. They talk about encounters. They talk about, the world not being safe. It's kind of almost like it's post-apocalyptic. They don't really say. I guess it's up to the game master to fill in those blanks, but the world is pretty bleak, so you can fill in the rest if your grimdark mind wants to. They give you monsters, various, upfront categories of monsters, and again, if you want to make a monster truly unique, you can actually use your thumbprints. Again, you can use a random thumbprint. So again, it's a very unique mechanic that comes up over and over and over again. Of course, the problem is that your thumbprints will always remain the same. So, it's only going to be unique once, and then you're going to use, you can use other people's thumbprints or fingerprints to randomly generate stuff, or again, you can use the tables. Artwork in this is pretty minimalistic. It's this great black and white, it's like almost, black ink on a white paper, and they scratched off the ink to make the picture. So nothing like super revolutionary here, but it's great and it serves its purpose. I especially dig the piece on the cover, because if you take a look at the cover, it's a person's fingerprints wisping off in the shape of a person. Now, that's pretty awesome. I like that a lot. So again, $20 from Exalted Funeral. I think you can get this on other websites just for the PDF for $10 if the physical copy doesn't excite you. But it's a great game. You can run it by itself, or like I said, you can use it. You can stack it onto another game and make a sub game of it. Like if they fell into an ink trap and they got ported into another world, this is what I would use. So yeah, check it out. And until then, go forth and be awesome.